What is happening, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Hoping you're enjoying the content so far this summer with all the improvements and modifications I'm doing to the Rabbit. As always, if you're not subscribed and you're enjoying the content, hit that subscribe button. I always appreciate the comments and chatting in there, so drop me a comment. And if you're really feeling sporty, hit that like button, share it with your friends. But in this episode, we are doing some transmission upgrades. So this thing came with an 020 transmission, which is like the factory 5-speed that comes with that Corrado VR6 engine. But in order for it to work with the Mark 1 chassis, S&P Automotive sell this linkage rod kit. It basically transforms the factory rod linkage in the Mark 1 chassis to the 020 transmission. Now, I have it working, it works, but it's not great. You can't really bang through the gears. You gotta be kind of precise. If you go too hard, too aggressively, you end up grinding the gears. There's a lot of slop in that mechanism. So very popular upgrade, what people do is they drop in an O2J shift tower, and then from like a Mark IV Jetta or a Mark IV Golf that uses cable linkages, you can put in the shift box and cables from a Mark IV. So that's what I have going on today. Let's get to some unboxing. Now, this is by no means a DIY channel, but if you're watching this video, this is a pretty good list of everything you need if you want an O2J swap your O2A transmission. So let's start with this. This is the shifter box that goes inside the cabin. That's what's gonna select your gears. And you can see as I move the shift lever, the end links move. So it goes from rod linkage system to a cable system. You got the bracket that mounts to the top of the transmission, the cable ends which mount to the shifter. You have the shift tower. This is what goes into the transmission and selects the gear. Now on this you have the weighted end, you have all the linkages you need. You also need, depending on the transmission, this little, bracket that bolts into the bottom of the transmission that goes on to there. Now the reason why you need this is because I think the tower in the O2A, depending on what year you have, is a different diameter to the O2J. So you need that. Got a bunch of bolts to install it. And the last thing is this bracket. Now this converts the holes in the Mark 1 chassis to the bolt pattern of the Mark IV shifter. So you don't need to go cutting up your car, anything like that. Again, S&P Automotive coming through clutch with this adapter bracket. Shout out to my dad in the UK for shipping this over. I found this as a kit on eBay. It was the most complete kit I found with everything I needed. The price was right, and this kit looked really clean from the pictures, and as you can see, it's in really good condition for something that's probably 25, 30 years old. There was kits I could find in the States, but they didn't have everything I needed. I would have been trying to piece stuff together myself. So I found this kit, and I also got a couple of these bushings which go in here, just help tighten things up a little bit. I also bought an ECS Tuning short shifter. Now this is new, they just brought this out for the Mark IV. And what's pretty unique about this one is that most short shifters just replace kind of some of this stuff and the linkage on the transmission, whereas this one actually replaces the shift tower in here. Now you can see these have got plastic bushings in, and they kind of wear out over time. So I'm pretty interested to try this. It's a slightly different solution to the short shifters on the transmission, changing out the actual shifter in the car, like on the box. So, and it's gonna be easier to do that while it's out of the car. So really interested to see how this feels. And yeah, let's install this in the box while it's out of the car. So that's a pretty easy install. Just follow the instructions from the website. A little bit fiddly, but it's all together. One last adjustment of this when it's in the car. That's the reverse gear lockout. And the only thing I'm kind of worried about is the adjustment. If you're familiar with Volkswagen and Audi 5-speed, 6-speed manual transmissions, you have to drop a pin into the shifter and lock it in place to align the shifter cables. Now, because I did this out of the car, they weren't already pre-adjusted for the transmission, and I don't see a way of adjusting it with this short shifter, so I guess I'll just have to figure it out when it goes in the car. But the next step is going to be to start stripping out the inside of the car, drop the shifter out, then I'll go into the engine bay, take the shift rods out, take the shift tower out, and I can put all this new stuff back together. And another thing too with this shifter is about an inch shorter than the one that came out. I can show you this. You can see it's about an inch shorter. And when you put these into a Rabbit, it actually drops another couple of inches inside of the car. So this shift is going to be really low. There's a company called Likewise. I've been looking at them for a little while. They make like extenders. So I might have to figure out the thread pitch on here and make an extender. Or I might just be able to buy a nut that's the same thread pitch and then weld on like a 2 or 3 inch piece of rod just to extend the shifter. I kind of like that option because it's DIY, it's do it yourself at home, but we'll figure that out when it's in the car. Good morning, internet homies. It is another sunny day in beautiful Stowe, Vermont. Yeah, yesterday finished up just installing that short shifter in the box. My buddy came over, he bought a new car, and he already had a bunch of boxes of parts he wanted to install on it. So we spent the rest of the day doing that, lowering springs, exhaust, a couple of other things. So yeah, that took up the rest of yesterday. Today though, got to get the GTI out of the way, do a little cleanup in the shop from yesterday, and then we'll get the Rabbit on the lift, and we can get on with installing the short shifter. So first order of business for the day is going to be removing some of the shifter stuff inside of the cabin. Then I'll probably go under the hood and disconnect some of the shift rods, do as much as I can. Then I'll put it up in the air, disconnect everything from underneath, and then last we'll swap over the tower that goes in the transmission, and then do it all in repeat, get this new shifter in, and hopefully I'll get it done today. So we'll see how much progress we make. Alright then, well, as you could see, or as you couldn't see, because it's really difficult to film inside of the engine bay here, I disconnected all the old shift rods. So that's all these here. So all of these rods is what connected the shifter to the old transmission. And because they're very rigid, but the engine actually moves a little bit, that's what can cause you to grind gears and just have a kind of a vague feeling to the shifting. So that's why when you go to cables, the cables have some movement in them that allows us that flexibility. It's also a lot more accurate. So I disconnected all of those shift rods, took them out, and then I just took the shift tower out. So you can see down in there, that's where this shift tower came out of. So I can put the new one in and then start putting this back together. That was pretty smooth, probably less than an hour to get that done. I think I need to jack the car up again and drain the transmission fluid, because I need to change this little grommet thing on the bottom. And I also need to change out the drain plug for the transmission. When I put the engine in last year, I did put new transmission fluid in it, but I used like an ECS Tuning drain plug, which actually drops down a little bit. And spoiler alert, I have right here a lower strut bar, or goes between like the control arms, and that hits that drain plug because it's slightly longer, whereas the OEM one's recessed. So we need to change that out, drain the fluid. I only put this fluid in less than like 1,000 miles, so I'll probably be cheap and reuse the fluid. Then I can put that plug in the bottom and start reassembly. All right, quick update. Did a bunch of stuff off camera because it's really hard to film down here in the engine bay, but I got the new shift tower in. You can see here, kind of buried under there. So we get to focus. All right, where that ball is a bracket. That's a bracket that holds the cables coming through from the tunnel. So that's all bolted in. Next thing I need to do is get the car back in the air, put the transmission fluid back in, then I can try and bolt the shift tower underneath the car, and we're pretty close. Little final stretch here. Okay, the shifter is in. Couldn't really film much, unfortunately. It's really difficult to see what's going on in the engine bay. I'm working blind half the time, so trying to get a camera in there to show you what's happening, it's pretty difficult. But basically what I did was I bolted the shift tower up underneath the car into the cabin. I ran the cables up and over the steering rack, and then I threaded the end of the cables through that bracket that we bolted to the top of the transmission and attached the end links. I did get some solid bushings for those end links just to stiffen things up a little bit. For the alignment, I kind of figured that the end links that were on those cables were probably in good alignment from the last car they came off. So I just taped where they were as a reference point. I had to take them off to thread them through the bracket, but I managed to put the end links on in the exact same location. Now I ran through the gears and it feels okay, so I think I got a little bit lucky with that one. And then yeah, the shifter inside of the car, you can see that looks pretty sweet. It's a little short, as to be expected, so I may need to lengthen it just a couple of inches. But yeah, just a couple of small adjustments I need to do, but I'll do those off camera. And you know, at the end of these videos now, I like to go for a little drive to test out the work that I did. Unfortunately, I don't think I'm gonna be able to do that in this episode. I do have the Rabbit on the lift, and I've got my next mod lined up ready to go. So I think I'm just gonna jump straight into that. That is a shortened oil pan and an R32 Mark V oil pump. So I can raise the sump by about 20-25 millimeters, give me a little bit more clearance. Means I can lower the front just a little bit more, get that stance looking perfect. So that's coming up in the next episode. Stay tuned for that. But as always, if you're enjoying the content and you're not already, please subscribe. It really helps me out. Drop me a comment, share it with your friends. Join me next time. We'll put that shortened oil pan on. I'll catch you next time.